Today, I'm in conversation with Elise Maile, an independent CRO consultant that specialises in helping SMEs to get the most from their website. As well as working for smaller companies, Elise has also worked alongside a number of charities, which provides her with a broad experience of both commercial and not-for-profit challenges. Elise, your client base is a mix of charities and SMEs, all at different levels of their evolution as far as CRO is concerned. So how are these smaller companies embracing CRO?
Well, it really depends on the company. So the charities are obviously going through a bit of a tough time with COVID-19 right now. But even historically, there's always been a big focus with charities on sort of that education piece. So it's not just about fundraising. It's not just about getting more money in the pot. They're also trying to make sure that the people that they're trying to help are aware that their services are there and trying to help them. So in terms of embracing CRO, I think there's a big piece with charities around sort of understanding whether their users understand the support that's there for them. And for the smaller companies, I think they're in a much better position to do CRO. They're smaller. There's less white tape to try and get through, so they have a better opportunity to be customer first and to really think about what their customers want and need, and then pivot their marketing and pivot their product based on customer feedback. I think that's the main things that I see around SMEs and around charities. The really interesting thing about charities, I find, is that variety of different user goals, and it was something I hadn't thought about before I started working with charities. And then as soon as you sit down and you have conversations with all of the different departments, you suddenly realize, oh wait, no, it isn't just about money or getting donations in. It is about education as well. So I find it really interesting there.
And how do you manage to balance the needs of multiple stakeholders in CRO? Because often you're driven by someone who's interested in conversion rate optimization, which in turn equals money. And in charity work, you've got that, but you've also got that educational piece that also has a voice, and therefore you may have one or two different masters.
Yeah, that's valid. And it comes up quite a lot, especially in the larger charities. I'm really lucky in the sense that normally, if I'm working in a charity, someone who's a stakeholder is already an advocate for CRO and is already on board with it, and they tend to have those connections with higher up stakeholders to sort of turn around and go, look, we know that you want to get more money in, but also this is our main goal as a charity. So quite often I'm not even the one that has to do that fighting. But when I do have to try and get that message across, getting all those people in a room, those different stakeholders in a room to actually talk it through and go, look, it's not all about the money. The money is important. The money is what pays you and it's what pays me, but that's not the be all and end all. And I think from my experience, most of the people working in charity are already of that certain mindset where they're trying to do their best. They want to help people. That's why they're working in the charity sector. So getting them to move away from the idea that it's all about conversion rates and it's all about money is actually a little bit easier in charities than you would think.
It must be quite refreshing because a lot of the time you must be focused on delivering a return on investment, especially for small businesses. But obviously in a charity, is there much more of a balance between the return on investment and the education piece?
So I don't think that ROI is the best way to measure the success of a CRO program. There's a multitude of reasons why I think that, and partly it's because you have peaks and troughs throughout the year. For example, look at coronavirus this year. That's had a massive impact on many different companies' revenue over the last 6 months. Actually, it's been going on for so long. So judging CRO based on ROI during that time period just isn't going to work. And I think, although it's something you have to bear in mind, no matter what program you're doing, no matter what company you're working for, ROI still has to be thought about. But there's a bigger aspect, which I believe is to do with being customer first and user focused and making sure you've got the best user experience you can have. Now, the interesting thing with CRO is that, as you said earlier, quite often the focus is on conversion rates and increasing revenue and driving up those conversion rates. But in order to improve those conversion rates and that revenue, quite often the changes you're making are to do with that user interface. And if you're improving the user interface, you are effectively improving that user experience. And the whole idea is that by improving that user experience, you're going to make it a smoother experience for your customers. They're going to find it easier to find the information that they're looking for. And as a result, you're going to increase that customer loyalty. So over a prolonged period of time, you're going to have better customer loyalty, which means more money in the longer run. So it all kind of plays into that ROI, but I think people get stuck on looking at that as opposed to thinking about, are we just improving this for the user, because that's the ultimate goal.
So just taking a little step backwards, what's your approach to gaining and retaining new clients? And what intrigues me is, who are the people inside these smaller clients that are the point of contact for CRO?
It really varies. In terms of gaining clients, there's a lot of recruiters that I go through, sort of scouring job boards, but also word of mouth, especially in those smaller companies. So I do workshops with startup incubators where I spend a day doing user testing and an educational presentation around what UX and CRO is. And I've had times where some of those startups have come back to me a year or two later going, we have a little bit of budget, could you help us out? So that in effect is a bit of word of mouth. And most of those smaller companies normally have someone who I've worked with previously, or I've dealt with them in some way, who've turned around and gone, I know a person that can help us with the UX, with the CRO, a little bit of development, and let's get her on board. So in terms of the people, that's how I tend to gain new clients, and retention comes out of that as well. If I've done a good job, then the chances are I might end up working with someone in another role where I've worked with them previously. In terms of the people who I'm dealing with in those, especially in those small and medium companies, it really depends. A lot of the time it's marketing or product. That seems to be where these smaller companies have already invested some time and money, so they already have a team there, and they are interested in UX and they're interested in CRO. It's something that they're either doing in-house a little bit themselves, or they're looking at potentially getting an agency in, but they can't maybe afford the agency. So most of the time I'm working with head of marketing, head of product, product management, those sort of roles.
In these smaller businesses, is it always the website manager that takes the lead on CRO?
It's quite often varied across the different businesses. A lot of the time, especially in those smaller companies where I've gone in to do that UX and CRO piece, they might not even have a website manager. They might have sales and marketing and product who are all feeding into the website, but they don't necessarily have someone owning the website itself, in which case my role as a CRO consultant can quite often turn into a bit of a website manager position as well, where you're really having a look at the SEO on the website, the way that everything is communicated, like the copy, the structure of the website. So quite often that CRO position can involve some of that website management as well. And typically I'm working with marketing whose main goal is to drive traffic to the website, which isn't something that I particularly specialize in. So I'm normally quite happy to take over that website management piece, as well as the UX and CRO, and improving those conversion rates, whilst working alongside a marketing manager who can tell me more about the personas, more about their audience, more about their marketing strategy. And that way I can shape their website to match both the product and their marketing strategy.
You're listening to the shortened version of this podcast. To listen to the full version, visit your favourite podcast player and search for Webtrends Optimize or The Big Lift.